Well, I will tell you, like, and you've known this since we first met. I'm an enormous Shure fan. I've been, as a musician, many people in our company are musicians. I've been aware of the microphones, the SM7 forever. I mean, it's iconic. And it's funny, when I went to a Blink 182 concert in San Francisco like a year ago as a company outing, and I saw all these mics with these big fins on them that were pointed at the stage and stuff like that for the recording. And so I guess a question I'm sort of curious about is, has the supply chain for audio equipment, have you seen any, like, I would say, global shifts in the way that people are thinking about stuff, versus, I'm thinking US versus China. I know you guys have a team in China, so maybe instead of flying to Europe for Gibson, maybe you're doing a lot more travel, but just to a different continent. I'm kind of curious how, like, the presence of China has changed over time, if you've seen it in the last 17 years.
So in general, it has a ton. Even when I first started in consulting, China/Asia in general was kind of the go-to for low-cost sourcing. Obviously, it was still considered a very developing nation. Now I'm getting on, 20 some odd years just in the field in general. It's becoming less cost competitive in general because of the labor rates that you're seeing, the materials, the transport costs back. And obviously now we've got the geopolitical climate of tariffs really kicking into play. For a long time, I guess even when I came on, we were heavily into Asia, depending on what part. It wasn't all in China, but it was a substantial amount of our spend was in Asia. Well, right now, like a lot of companies, we are actually trying to regionalize where possible and practical for a variety of reasons. One, like I mentioned before, China, they've got an exceptional supply chain, but at the same time, it's not necessarily as cost competitive as it used to be, which now makes Mexico in play, or the southern US or other entities. And then when you start taking the total cost of ownership into the equation, well, if we're now supplying our Juarez facility, it can make more sense to have something in Mexico. And then we can service our Suzhou facility somewhere out of Asia and really balance those costs overall. A lot of folks are trying to do that right now. So a lot of people are running to Mexico. And Mexico is a very challenging environment to source in because of the way it's designed. I think that right now it's very geared toward automotive or larger commercial products or high runners in general. We tend to be high mix, low volume. So unless you're a big player in there, you've got to find a very niche supplier that's willing to entertain you. Automotives down there, appliances, etc. I think there's a lot of exceptional suppliers in Asia, but honestly, even for us in China, it was always hard to find that right match because it's got to be somebody that's willing to do it with Shure's quality, which has always been the apex of everything we do. It's got to have our cosmetic standards to it because we are on camera a lot of the time. We tend to have highly engineered parts. And like I mentioned, we're high mix, low volume. And by the way, we want a reasonable cost. We're not looking for the cheapest cost that's out there because a lot of the times you get what you pay for. But when you put all those variables in there, the pond of fishing gets real small.